Hello and welcome to Black and Forth. I'm your host, Nori. Very happy to be here once again. I have a special guest on the line, and she's going to share with us. This particular episode is dedicated to financial freedom. So I have Shani Curry here with us. She is, I got a chance to read your bio. You are so empowering and so purposeful in making sure that you're helping people. And I love that you have a background in journalism. I love that you have worked in the sales industry, the banking industry. You are an insurer for life and health insurance. So you give full body, full workup, investment properties, the first one at 22. I mean, the list goes on of your accomplishments. So to have you here, we are definitely grateful. This episode has been brought to you by Digital-PR and The Wave USA. And again, I'm your host, Nori. So I want to just jump right into it. Give us a little bit about your background, because I read that your credit score at one point was like 500 and something, and you were like, okay, I got to make a change.
Okay, so first thing, Nori, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time to get to know me, because oftentimes what will happen is when I'm interviewed, I'm finding that like I'm having to tell the person that's interviewing me about me. So I just want to say thank you for actually getting to know who you're bringing to your audience, a little bit of vetting and, making sure that there's some resonance with that person in your audience. So I really appreciate you taking the extra step to get to know me. So interesting enough, my credit was a 520, but it was not because of my poor behavior with my credit. It might have been just the lack of knowledge on how to operate with credit. So one of the really good things that my mother did for me when it came to money is, credit anyway, she told me to steer clear of the envelope epidemic, right? So that means that when you are on the breezeway in college and they're saying, hey, we'll give you some free pizza if you give me your social,
Exactly.
my mother was really good about forewarning me about that because of her experience with credit card debt. So I never really got into any credit card debt. I didn't pick up a bunch of retail cards when I was in college or any of those things. So my credit score was because the credit bureau did not know me. So not all the time is your credit, score low because you have poor behavior. It may be because you have poor knowledge, and your poor knowledge is having an impact on your behavior, right? Because you don't have any literacy on how to operate. So that was probably like the first part of it, of not having any credit in the first place. So only thing I had was the $15,000 car loan that I had, and by the time I graduated from college, I had paid off my car. So that's all the credit bureau knew about me. Now I wanted to jump from a $15,000 Dodge Stratus to a $161,000 property, and they really didn't have enough information about me as a consumer about, okay, well, we saw how she did with this $15,000. How is she now going to operate at 161? There was no information about me to suggest that to them. So that's why my credit score was so low at that time.
Wow. I think you bring up such a valuable point, education and knowledge, and just not knowing how to operate in the credit space. One of the things that I think is awesome about your story or testimony is you focus on like healing people's relationship with the money.
Yeah.
So
so oftentimes when I sit with my clients, right, and even like how I talked about that in terms of like my mother teaching me about the envelope epidemic, right? So maybe when I think back in my mind, because I didn't grow up wealthy, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I never had a hungry day, so I consider my life to be very balanced in that way, but oftentimes when I sit with my clients, one of the things they like to lead conversations with is, my parents have bad habits, or my parents didn't teach me this, my parents didn't show me this. And, there's all this, self-hate, and there's all this blame, and it's all this lack of responsibility and individual accountability. And instead, we're thinking about all the things that our parents didn't teach us, right? So we have like this kind of cockiness or this kind of, blame game that we can play. But what I've always been able to do is that oftentimes you can learn just as much from what someone does not teach you, just as much as you can learn from what someone does teach you, and oftentimes the deficit of information is really the gap that you need to really get you to that next level. You understand? Like, you really needed that. So while, my mother did teach me about stocks and bonds and trading and things that she herself as a woman just, never delved into, doesn't really understand, I'm not going to, blame her for not having that knowledge or understanding, so what I do is I look and I say, okay, what did I learn from my mother that has equipped me to go out in the world? What are some things that my mother did in her stage of whatever her life was at that time that I can now reuse, remodel, repurpose in order to maneuver to the next level within our legacy? So that's why I really wanted to share that story, because sometimes people negative habits come from the place within their childhood that they haven't really been able to rewrite those stories. So they take those stories into their adulthood and they manifest in so many unhealthy ways, right? But once you be able to look through your lens, in a healing way, it's like, okay, my mother didn't teach me this, but by her not teaching me this, I learned this.
Right. It has a lot to do with mindset. And I can definitely tell that, when you're with your clients and coaching, you got to kind of remove those negative mindsets or connotations that they had previously to really start to focus on how they can move forward, which I absolutely love that. So, you talked about nuggets of information that your mother shared with you. So tell us how you learn to manage, invest, and save money once you realize, like, okay, this is what I can take and utilize.
Okay, so I would say that I would think that most of what my mother taught me was probably through my eyes, right? It's not so much that she was teaching me through her words, you understand? So that I think the only thing that the largest part of her, three things that my mother, I can think of right off the bat, that my mother was really good of transferring to me, not through lecture, but through life. And that is really where you learn. That is it. Lecture, it's a funny lesson. You might pick it up, you might not. But those lessons, they seem to permeate. So if I think about lecture, one of the things that my mother was really firm on is making sure that you had life insurance. That was a lesson that my mother always transferred over to me. Home ownership is something that my mother owned a property, like in her 20s, maybe 25 or 26 years old. So it was a natural thing for me to own property. Maybe she wasn't much of an investment investor, a property investor, but at least she, had ownership in a property. And then the credit card thing is what I would say. Now, what I believe really transmuted the way that I operated with money is because as a child, I grew up under the illusion of wealth. Like, I really thought we were rich. Like, I really did, because we had the biggest house in the neighborhood. We had the best car in the neighborhood. When I went to the store, to the mall, I was able to get whatever it is that I thought that I wanted. And I just felt like, I was spoiled. That's how I felt. I felt like I was in the lap of luxury until I got to college and I had to stand in that financial aid line.
Right.
Hey, what's going on here?
Well,
brands are not working out for me.
Yes, it's interesting you bring up the financial aid line, because I think even with students just getting exactly what they need for their education and not getting excess of loans and things of that nature, it gets a little hard and difficult. So, what encouraging words or what information would you share, resources, especially for college students that are getting started or have been in college for a while, that are depending on loans, and those that are transitioning and getting ready to start to pay back loans?
One of the main things that one of the main things I would say is not to pick up more debt than you actually need, right? So I I only picked up $14,000 in student loan debt. My clients have $50, $60, $100,000 in student loan debt. And I just find that to be very overwhelming. So while I was, targeting my mind to purchase my first home, they couldn't think about that because they were loaded up in car debt and they were loaded up in student loan debt. Like they technically had already financed a house. Right? Yes. Because they were doing some very interesting things while they were in college. Like they were buying Louis Vuitton bags on their student loans. They were staying in these very high priced apartments, right? I was a resident assistant. I was an RA. I lived on campus the entire time that I was in college. I ate cafeteria food the whole time that I was there because I realized that that was a part for me to become educated. It was not a time for me to live this elevated life, And I think oftentimes when people graduate from college, they think that this is the time for them to show to the world that they have arrived, when in fact, they've only arrived at the next place. They're not at the destination. So they start operating, needing to take on these symbols of arrival when they have not. You have a car that looks like you arrived, you have debt that looks like you arrived when really you're just really getting started. So the tip that I would say is, number one, if you're in college right now, stop taking on so much debt. Number two, look at your major right now and make sure the amount of debt that you're taking on is going to transfer into an income level that is going to support your debt elimination plan, right? If you're going to school to become a teacher, you don't want to take up $100,000 in student loan debt because the projected income from that, at least in South Florida, is maxed you out at $54,000. So the numbers just don't go into each other. Don't take on more debt. Don't live as if you have arrived at a place. Just respect your current phase and then graduate in how you operate with money. So that will be one of the number one things is, reduce the amount of debt that you're going to take on and knowing that at some point in the back of your mind, you're going to have to pay this.
Absolutely. How can people better manage their money and even start to save? I mean, obviously, it's a larger conversation happening with COVID. It's a larger conversation happening with small businesses, a larger conversation happening with just employment. That's a conversation for another day. But what are some steps that people...
We can touch on it since we're in the COVID economy. We can touch on, operating with your money in terms of COVID. So the income level of my clients range anywhere from $45,000 to $250,000. And that is like a really big gap in income levels, right? But the commonality that I see, whether or not if they are experiencing limited cash flow or if they have an abundance of cash flow, here's the commonality. Right? Waste, right? And when you're wasting, right, you don't have enough availability to grow. It doesn't matter if you're at the 250 and it doesn't matter if you're at the 45. If you are having an insurmountable amount of waste, this is going to dictate just how much you can grow, right? Your flow dictates how much you can grow. So what I would say, no matter what income level you're at, you need to have some form of a budget. You need to have a form of a budget. I'll share a link with you. Many of my clients, they use Money Patrol. What I like about Money Patrol is that you have the opportunity to look at how much you said you were going to spend and how much you actually was going to spend. And then you're looking at that number. So I'll get a client that says, and I'll say, hey, how much are you spending on dining out? And they'll say, maybe about $200 a month, which is like $50 a week. Okay, that's not too bad. All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll look at that number. But once I plug that number in and it's attached to all of their different accounts, often what I'm finding is you're spending $600 on grocery and then $1,500 on dining out. Right? And people are like, are you like the food police? No, I'm not the food police, right? What I am, though, is making sure that I am the growth police, right? So if you're wasting $1,500, $1,100, $1,500, how can you begin to invest? How can you take that money and protect it from the two places that needs most protection, right? There's two things: taxes and inflation. You got to deal with them, right?
Right.
You got to deal with those. So you got to make sure that while you are spending, sharing, you got to make sure that you're able to invest, right? You're able to invest because your money has to keep pace with those two variables, taxes and inflation. So whether we're in the COVID economy, whether you are in an abundance economy, no matter where you find yourself, look at how much you're bringing in, how much is going out, and what is that space in between, and how can I begin to fill this gap? Should I fill this gap with growing my business? Should I fill this gap with investing? Should I fill this gap with, now I'm going to do some debt elimination? So no matter where you are, no matter what your gap is reflecting back to you, your flow can move you to expansion. You just got to simply take the time to look at it.
You are dropping so many gems, and I know our audience that's watching this is going to have a pen and paper and trying to definitely write down all of this information that you're sharing, especially with Money Patrol. Like, thank you for sharing that. You definitely didn't have to. You know, I just want to pin out your website. So on your website, you have a link called Rock the Score, and they report your rent payments, major credit bureaus. Tell us about how does that work? Is that kind of like Money Patrol, or is that something that's a little different?
No, this one is totally different. So I do work with a lot of my clients in terms of achieving homeownership, building their business credit, getting their first credit cards, leveraging their credit to expand their business, or leveraging their credit to now go and refinance their property. So I work with credit a lot. That is something that's like I call it the gateway drug.
Yes.
Because I can get people to me because they see something that they want, right? They see something that they want. What we have to do is, when you do not have any credit availability, right? So remember how I talked about how when I didn't have any credit, I had to do some very savvy things in order to establish some credit, because the only thing I had was $15,000. That's all the credit bureau knew about me. And that your credit relationship, I think when people start taking words apart, they tend to humanize these financial systems, right? Because financial systems, they often feel so distant to us, right? They don't feel personalized. They don't feel like a person, right? But when you start humanizing these different entities, it makes it easier for you to realize that I am in a relationship, right? And when it comes to your credit, you're in a relationship with the credit bureau. They're simply looking at your ability to borrow money and pay it back. That's all they're looking at. Borrowing money and paying it back. And how well do you do that? Okay. So when I find that my client and your credit is built within the last 36 months, it takes you 3 years to build up that credit score, right? That's what they're looking at. When they're looking at your numbers, they're looking at the history that has happened in the last 36 months, which is that 3-year period, okay? The particular link that you reference is one of the links that I share with my clients when they do not have any credit. So one of the things that they can do is have their rent reported on their credit, and that will assist them with them. There's other things that they can do in terms of becoming an authorized user on one of their family members' cards. That gets a little tricky because it has to be a family member that you really know. And when I say know, you know them in the way that if you need to look at your credit utilization and make sure that it's between that 7 and 30%, that means you know them. But if you don't have that kind of relationship with them, you don't know them, sis, right? You don't know them. You don't need to add yourself to their card, because what happens when you get added as an authorized user, while you cannot impact their credit, they can impact yours. So while that is savvy and it is something that I did to boost my own credit score, I did it under the auspices that I had a really good relationship and I was able to look at that person's credit as often as I wanted to. So you want to be savvy about that. So that is one of the links that I help my clients with, in finding savvy ways to begin to build up their credit score.
That makes so much sense. Like, you got to use some common sense and wisdom when you out here working with that credit, okay? Before you end up in a situation. I see you have it's a 5-day and a 21-day challenge that you do as well. So talk to us about those challenges and what that entails.
So the 5-day money. So here's something that I have been really intentional about this year, especially in this COVID economy, right? And I took a class right at the beginning of the quarantine, and it's called The Science of Well-Being. It's a course that you can take on Coursera. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Oh, you were nodding. I thought, oh my gosh, I have a classmate. Okay. So I have spent a decade in understanding how people relate to personal finances. Oftentimes when I'm working with people, while they may come to me about their credit score, wanting to save money or wanting to invest, whatever it is that they're wanting to do, there's usually some type of financial event that triggered their bad credit score or triggered their poor relationship with money or their empty bank account or their overspending. It might be divorce, it might be depression, it might be, a horrible relationship. It could be their business didn't work out. So maybe they're coming to me complaining about their score, but it's really a gamut of all these other things, right? It's always all these other things. And no different than COVID. Here's the balance, and here's how the course sinks in. So when I took the course at the beginning, and I've been working with people in that way for over a decade, so I've always known that money is not your problem. You feel like it's your problem, but it's not your problem. Your real problem is your real problem, and it's manifesting in your money. That's how I've always felt. Even before I took the course, I've always known that. So by taking the course, it gave me the opportunity to get statistical data about what I had felt in the first place. I was so excited, like, oh my gosh, someone has researched the thoughts that I've been thinking, and now I have some research, right? Yes. So here's some of the prominent thoughts from the research that really got me excited is that in order to be happy in America, the most amount of money that you need to make is $75,000. $75,000, right? So basically what they did was this study, right, that produced even the people who make $78,000, 85, 150, 250, they still was just as happy as the person who made $75,000.
I love that.
Right? It's just like they were just happy at the 75. Like even if you made like 100,000, they found that their level of happiness was exactly the same because what they were able to quantify is that once you're able to pay your mortgage or pay your rent, get a car, eat, go out, get your hair done a few times, get your nails done, take care of your children, no more your financial, numerics was going to shape your happiness, right? What they did was they put together these habits that you actually needed to have. And one of the base level things that I took away is that this whole idea of being happy wasn't going to come from your money. It was going to come from these set of behaviors that you had to do every single day, right? So I learned from the course is that money wasn't going to make you happy. In fact, being happy was going to be like brushing your teeth. Like you can't residually brush your teeth. Like you could be Beyonce. You can't brush your teeth for next week. You can't. Right. You gotta do it.
You gotta do it every day.
You gotta do it every day. So these happiness things, right? And this is gonna go into the challenge that you asked me about. I'll take you a long way just to get you right there.
I'm with you on this journey though.
You with me? Okay, so good.
Yes.
So I grew up in a hair salon, right? So I grew up listening to stories. Like that was like, it's my life. So I was going to be a journalist anyway because I love the stories, right? I love the storytelling. Okay, so to get you on the journey. So so these behaviors in terms of you have to, in order for you to be happy, you have to almost do these set of behaviors as if you were brushing your teeth. They have to be in there. One of the things is, number one, you have to move your body. You have to. You have to. Just the biological benefits of you moving your body was just going to change your mood in the first place. 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whether it was yoga, jumping jacks, jump rope, whatever you calisthenics, or whatever you decided to do, you need to move your body. Whether you're at 75 or 100, you got to move your body. Whether you're at 500,000, you got to move that body. Okay? The other thing was meditation. They found the people who meditated and those who did not was able to hold their together in stressful situations, right? That mindfulness improvement that they just sat down and kind of quiet their minds. They found those people to just have a better mood. Those parties, third behavior, that was very intentional about taking healthy food and putting it within their eyesight. So somebody called me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I'm like, who called me? me. Don't
I know.
All right. So the fruit, having fruit, apples, oranges, things that were healthy just in your mind's eye so that your eyes could see it would actually increase your ability to consume it as well as improve your happiness level. The other thing is that the fourth behavior was that if you were going to have to make a decision whether or not if you were going to buy something for yourself or buy something for someone else, right? You should probably buy it for someone else, because those parties that actually, right, was intentionally about giving away things were actually happier. They're saying in this study that your body actually recognizes you doing something good for someone as you doing it for yourself. So what they did was they gave these people an assignment, gave them like they gave them $5 $20 bills, and then they all just kind of went out, and then they watched their happiness level, the ability to, be happier, by giving things away. The other one was reducing the amount of time that you spend on social media, reducing it, right? Saying that those parties that you should, so for every hour that you're on social media, you're going to spend $4 for every hour because of the ads, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the ads is going to be one of the negative aspects, right? That has always played a role in human behavior, right? And it's definitely some very interesting information, simply because when you think about human behavior outside of social media, meaning like when I work with some of my clients and they're already in debt, and then they come to me and they buy a BMW, and I ask them, hey, why are you buying a BMW? You're getting ready to go into retirement. You don't need to pick up this extra expense right now. I thought we were planning for you to kind of like be reducing your expenses so that you can put more money in your 401k. Why did you do this, right? And then when we keep going into the story over and over again, and finally I get to the bottom, the reason why they bought the car in the first place is because their brother has one, right? And that's you off of social media, right? So that's you just seeing your brother. And that's the impact on your financial behaviors. So now when you take that and multiply it by hopping on social media, and everybody got a BMW, everybody got a Maserati, everybody got a Range Rover.
They sure do.
Yeah, so now you're overly competing, and you're overly comparing, and and even the strongest of minds, right, have to be very, very careful, because your subconscious mind is already comparing and competing. It's very hard to change that and take that auto set off. So what they did was they suggested, if that you wanted to be happy, to be very intentional about the amount of time that you spend on social media. So I created the challenges from the happiness behaviors in order to plug in, because I know that people come to me in terms of wanting to heal their relationship with money, and I'm very happy to do it. And I'm very happy that I am able to help people achieve their money goals, because, the mind needs to see that I can achieve, that I can do things, that I can get a house, that I can get a car, that I can save 10,000, 15,000, 100,000. I can do this. The mind needs to see that. Even though the mind needs to see that, it's not going to make you happy, though. It's great, but it's not going to make you happy. They even did this study about those parties that, they did this study from the people that when they came to Yale and how excited they were, but then once they were there for 6 months, that happiness dropped down. it's like now it's just a bill,
Now it's work.
Yeah, now it's just the real work. That's all that it is. So it's best that, we do achieve these goals, we do achieve these material goals, because we're here, we're on the planet. So we might as well achieve things. But what we should not do is attach our happiness to it.
So again, I got a pen and paper over here, like, what? Okay, yeah. To have someone to talk through your thoughts. And I mean, I know you're not a therapist, but it still is a healing.
It's money
that
therapy.
you,
it's money.
Yeah.
It's money therapy. It's no need to, it's really good that to have a desire. And I do have, here's another thing, since you're taking notes, write this down: hedonistic adaptation. Do you have children?
I don't.
Okay, so I have 2 children, and they have been the best teachers for hedonistic adaptation, okay? What hedonistic adaptation does, not only do my children have it, they have just been the best people to teach it to me, because those are the ones that I absolutely love the most. I have an 8 and I have a 10-year-old, right? And I would always in my life think to myself, oh my gosh, what is wrong with these children? Something is wrong with them. Let me tell you when I start having this thought. I start thinking something is wrong with them on Christmas Day. Because I can't understand how you can open up all that stuff and then by 3 o'clock don't know where it's at.
Girl.
Don't want it. By the time I take you to Target on Monday, you're asking me for something else. I'm just here to get a little bread, a little cheese, and some milk. And you want
Yes.
another toy. And I just bought you something. It was just Christmas. Why do you want something else? It would also happen when I would take them to the museum. I mean, whoop. We would go to the museum and we would be there. And I mean, the clowns would jump out of the sky. The balloons would be floating through the air. I mean, this was just a wacky party. Clowns and all kinds of stuff, right? And the ice cream and pizza, you know? By the time we get to the car, they would say to me, Mommy, where are we going to go now? And I literally would want to rip my eyelashes off one by one because I could not understand how would you experience this amount of joy and then be like, what's next, right?
Yeah,
So they were my best teacher for hedonistic adaptation, right? What hedonistic adaptation does, it's a negative function of the brain. And this is also some of the research that they produced in this course, The Science of Wellbeing by Harvard. And so, interesting enough, what this negative part of the brain is, it gets bored, sis. So after a while, your brain just get bored and it's looking for a new experience, right? The same thing that my children are experiencing after they get these toys for Christmas, after they go to the museum, is the same thing an adult is experiencing when they really wanted to get this Maserati. They really wanted to have this Tesla. Oh my gosh, if I just got this Tesla, I would just be the happiest person on the planet. Please, 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 let me get this Tesla. Let me get this house. Let me get this course. Let me just get this thing, right? And then 6 months into it, it's just debt, right? That's all that it is. They're just like my children. The experience has set in, and now the mind is ready for something new. It is bored with the Tesla, as beautiful as it is. It is bored with the house, the apartment. The mind just gets bored with it. So because you know that after a while you're going to experience this boredom, not that you're sad, not that the car is garbage now, not that the house needs to be burned down, not that the relationship is toxic and ridiculous. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just hedonistic adaptation suggesting to you that it's time for you to expand. So it's better not to just heap all of your joy and your happiness to things because you're just going to get bored with them anyway after a while.
Oh, wow. I love it.
I love it too, sis.
It makes perfect sense though when you break it down in layman's terms. You're like, this is what it is. You're bored, sis. Like,
you're
what?
bored. And you're going to experience this boredom over and over and over again. You're just going to, because your mind constantly wants to see something new. Like, it's not that my children didn't like the toy. It's just that, okay, I have it now. I'm ready for something else. I'm ready for something else. And so they also suggested in the to kind of mitigate that, which is what a lot of people are on Supercharge.
How do you curb that? I was just about to ask you, how do you curb that?
Yes, right? So the way how you curb it, right, is through gratitude. Is through gratitude, right? People say it's ridiculous, right? But what needs to happen? The only way to be at peace, right, with the things that you currently have. And that's something that people find me to be a little obsessive about. They think I'm ridiculous. Like, they think a lot of people think I'm ridiculous. And in some ways, I could agree with them. But when it comes to gratitude, I'm not unhappy. I'm just not an unhappy person. And it doesn't mean that I don't go through anything. It just means that I'm genuinely grounded in my gratitude. Like, I realize these shoes right here, I don't have to have them. I don't have to have these shoes. There are people that are walking around barefoot right now. There's people that cannot walk right now. They literally would trade their life with me just for them to walk. You understand? Like, the breath that I'm taking in my body right now, especially at a time like this, people are attached to ventilators. At this time right now, trying to breathe, they would give me all the money in their account just for them to be able to breathe with ease. And so sometimes it sounds like a bunch of psychobabble, but once you really take into account these things that you could never pay for, breath, blood, the most expensive aspect of yourself, you will begin to reduce your anxiety, frustration, annoyance towards these external forces that are temporary. You're going to get bored with them anyway. So why don't you ground yourself in the things that you already have? Not to say that the things that you want are not on the way. It's just that you need not ignore what you have trying to get to what you want. It's a ridiculous concept because you're going to get bored anyway.
You're about to make
when I get some new shoes, I'm going to get bored anyway. It's bored in the house, just bored in the house. I want some new ones already, you know?
You know how I really needed to hear that. Like, I'm sure the audience feels that way, but me personally, at this moment, in this space in my life, I needed to hear that. And I just appreciate you pouring and sharing.
You're welcome.
Because that has really lifted my spirits this evening.
It's true. It's true. There's the most expensive part of who you are. Do you know how much money you would have to pay in order to have new eyesight?
Mm-hmm.
The ability, that's expensive, sis. That ain't no car.
Right.
To be able to sit upright without someone having to support you.
Yes.
You can just sit in a seat. You can hold yourself upright, and people think that these are tender, nothings. And that is the biggest part.
And
to be in
everything.
a space where you can think and it to be quiet is a blessing. To have food that you can choose. Not that the other things are not on the way, the filet mignon and whatever else it is that you want, but you should be thankful. And your thankfulness is not going to make you complacent. It's just going to mean that I'm not going to stress myself out on my way to the next thing. I'm going anyway. I'm going to get bored. I got that as a guarantee. I'm going to get bored anyway, and I'm going to want something else. I'm going to want a new jacket, a new house, a new car, a new dog, a new veil, a new shoes. That's why I ain't going to spend too much money on none of it, because I know I'll be bored in about 3 to 4 months. The people say
You saying that, Shani. You are saying that, okay?
I mean it.
Oh my goodness. This I know is going to bless a lot of people. I know you help a lot of people, but even just sharing this much of your time is going to help so many people. So thank you again for taking the time to speak on Black and Forth. Again, a special thank you to Digital-PR as well as the Wave USA. If people want to talk to you, if they want your consultation, if they want to work with you and get that financial freedom, share your information. How can we get in contact with you, your website, all of your information?
Everywhere you go, I'm Person Empowerment. Everywhere you go, I'm Person Empowerment. Every social media platform. I do have group coaching where if you're interested in working with me more in a group. I don't know when this episode airs. When will it air?
It's going to air a few weeks from now.
Okay, a few weeks from now. Okay, so I won't mention that. So I do have group coaching if you're more wanting to work in a group. Most people that want to do like more in-depth work, if you just have like a negative affinity to making money, having money, you exploit yourself, you don't understand money, or you just find that like you're just unhappy. You know, you have money, but you're just unhappy, right? You just need to kind of untangle. You just need to untangle some of that noise. And as I untangle in my client's mind, they go on to make more money. They get in better relationships. They like themselves a little bit more. The people that they were complaining about, the mother, the sister, the cousin, the dog, when they leave, they're no longer complaining because they realize that it is a blessing to be in other people's presence. And people aren't perfect. They aren't perfect. They're not. So we should at best make peace with them so that we can just endure this hedonistic adaptation the best way we can. Okay? That's the gag.
Oh my gosh, the gagging.
That's the gag right there, sis. The gag, this hedonistic adaptation is always there. It is always there. And the only way to ground ourselves is through gratitude. It is the only rescue ship. Any other place that you get on is going to fail you.
I mean, you said it. You said it. Thank you. Thank you. I am just like, oh man, this was fantastic.
Good. Fantastic. I'm glad.
Shani,
I'm glad our time together was good.
Girl, I needed to hear that again. It is Person Empowerment on all social media platforms. Thank you again for being here and joining us on Black and Forth. I'm your host, Nori. I have enjoyed this time. I have, I've definitely elevated, even just in talking to you, my mindset on gratitude. Like that's a gem. It's an absolute gem.
It's what it is. It's worth the 5 to 10 minutes to do it.
Yes.
It's
So,
worth it.
so thank you for your time. I'm not going to hold you at Digital-PR, at The Wave USA, at It's Nori Nori, Purse Empowerment. And this has been your episode of Black and Forth. Thank you so much.